Hello, my elegant warriors. Welcome back to How to Advocate with Heather Hansen, where I share the tools for you to become the best advocates for yourself, your ideas, and your potential. And today I want to talk to you about the very foundation of all of this, which is building belief with evidence. There is a blueprint for building beliefs, but no one has ever taught this to you because many people just think that beliefs drop out of the sky or something. I actually have a newsletter that goes out every week that is called The Blueprint for Beliefs, where I share some of the tools for you to do that. If you're interested in that newsletter, the link to sign up is in the show notes. But every week I share ways that you can build belief because it is a skill that you can learn and you can actually build beliefs. And people around us do this all the time, and we do this ourselves all the time. We do it for ourselves, both with other people and inside of our own brains. And it's really important to recognize this as a skill because when you change your beliefs, you change your life. So, for example, if you believe that you are incapable of making any more than a certain dollar amount, you're never going to make that amount. But if suddenly your belief changes and you see that you are capable of making more money, it is far more likely to happen. If you believe that you will never be healthier than you are today, chances are you won't get much healthier. But if you believe that you could run farther, sleep better, lose weight, or get healthier, chances are you are much more likely to achieve that result. I know that's how it worked for me. Before I lost the 100 pounds that I've talked about before on this podcast, I didn't believe it was possible. And once I believed, it became possible. And then I did it. So my belief changed my life. The same is true in relationships. If you believe you're never going to find someone, chances are you're not. If you believe that you will one day find the love of your life, chances are you will. You change your results when you change your beliefs. And so the power and the ability to change your beliefs and then to change other people's beliefs is really and truly a power. It is magic. And when you learn it, you have the power and you are the magic. So, how do you build a belief? Well, let's think about the things in your life that you believe in. When your alarm goes off in the morning, you believe that it is set to the right time and that it's actually time to get up. And then you go and brush your teeth and hopefully, and you believe that the toothpaste that you're using is going to make your mouth healthier and not less healthy. You drive to work and you believe your car is going to get you to work, hopefully. And when you're at work, you probably believe that your boss is going to pay you for being there. On the way home, you listen to the radio, and when you turn it on, you believe that you're actually going to hear something, whether it's a podcast or music. And then when you make yourself dinner, you believe that the food isn't going to make you sick. And when you go to bed that night, you believe that the alarm you set will wake you up the next morning. You have so many beliefs. Our lives are completely structured around and based upon our beliefs. And if we're going to believe in alarm clocks and toothpaste and cars and bosses and food and radios, why not believe in ourselves? So, how did we establish all those beliefs that we just talked about? Well, there were a couple things. The first thing was someone probably told you a story about alarm clocks or toothpaste or bosses or food. And they probably shared some evidence that they'd always used an alarm clock and it had gotten them up in the morning. They had used toothpaste, or you might have heard on a TV commercial, 2 out of 3 dentists recommend this toothpaste. That's evidence that you've been collecting over the course of your life. But then, most importantly, you created evidence for yourself. So you tried the alarm clock and it worked. It woke you up and you got out of bed. You tried the toothpaste and it worked. For the most part, your mouth is healthy. Maybe you've never had a cavity. You drove to work and you saw that the car actually gets you there. You started working. For me, I started working when I was 13 years old, and I saw that when you worked, you got money. You made the food and you saw that most of the time it didn't make you sick. You created evidence for yourself that proves to you that it actually works for you. And then you repeated it. And the more that you repeated it, the greater the belief can often become. And so these are the ways that you built belief in alarm clocks and toothpaste. And this is the same way that you can build a belief in yourself and then share that belief with other people. It is something that you want to start by proving it to you, and then you can prove it to others. So the first thing to consider is, what do you want to believe? What belief might change your life? I believed that I could stop being a lawyer and start being an author and a speaker. And that belief was super scary. You're going to hear more about that over the course of this podcast. It was very out of my reach at first. And then with collecting some evidence and creating some evidence and repeating some evidence, most days I feel in pretty strong belief. Not all days. And in future episodes of this podcast, we'll talk about doubts, which are just negative beliefs that we have to overcome. But most days I am in belief that I can give up the career of a lawyer, embrace the career of a author, speaker, membership runner, and coach consultant, and that this is a new career for me. And then I'm off to the races and I'm creating that evidence and I'm repeating it. So, what's evidence? You've kind of probably gleaned a little bit of what evidence is. The fact that the alarm clock woke you up is evidence. If it didn't wake you up, that would be evidence of something different. The fact that your mouth and teeth are healthy is evidence. If your teeth were constantly giving you cavities, it would be evidence that you needed maybe a different toothpaste. Your car getting you to work, your boss paying you. If your boss didn't pay you for your time, that would be evidence of something different. So, all kinds of things are evidence. Everything really is evidence. Words are evidence. Actions are evidence. Feelings are evidence. Results are evidence. Sometimes, when I'm just starting to want to have a belief, when I'm just starting to feel like, oh, this is something that I want to grab onto and believe in, I will look up the root of the word involved in that belief because I believe that words are magic and words have energy attached to them. And so if I can find some evidence in the root of a word that it is a good word for me, that it is a word that is going to move me forward, then my belief in that word and that thing that I'm trying to do grows. So words are one of the ways that we collect and create evidence. The other thing is actions. If I get up every morning when I say I'm going to meditate, that is evidence that I can become a meditator. It's also evidence that I can trust myself, that when I make myself a promise, I keep it. It's evidence that I am credible. It's evidence that I am committed. It's evidence that meditating is important to me. It's evidence, it could be evidence of a million things. And that's the thing about evidence. Facts, words, feelings, actions, reactions, results, they can all be evidence of a host of things. And so you want to take whatever it is that you want to prove and work backward to say what action would be evidence that that thing is true. What feeling would be evidence that that thing is true? What result would be evidence that that thing is true? And this is how you play with evidence. Words, actions, results, feelings, all potentially evidence of whatever it is that you want to prove. The thing about evidence is that not only are you constantly collecting and creating it from outside of you, but really importantly, you are evidence for others. So, for example, for your children, you are evidence that it is a good thing to move your body every day when you move your body every day. When you eat well and work to stay healthy, you are serving as evidence for your children. When you are kind to your partner, even when you've had a bad day, you are serving as evidence to your partner. When you are good to your staff and include them in decisions and information and are authentic and transparent with them, you are evidence of what a good leader looks like. Constantly throughout your day, you are serving as evidence for other people. And the other thing that really is evidence that we need to consider is your vibration is evidence. I often say your vibration is the foundation. Your vibration is the foundation of their belief. Because when people see you vibrating at a frequency of love or joy or excitement or enthusiasm, that is evidence to them that they could feel love and joy and enthusiasm and excitement for the thing that you are vibrating about. And if you're vibrating with frustration, resentment, fear, anxiety, scarcity, that is evidence for them that they might need to be vibrating at that vibration, at that frequency. And so, one of the first things you want to do when you're trying to build other people's beliefs and trying to be evidence to them of the things that you want them to believe is being really clear on your own vibration. But I think it's helpful to consider that we are evidence. In fact, my coach, the person who I learned how to coach from, Brooke Castillo, she has a podcast called The Life Coach School. It is Chef's Kiss, fabulous podcast. Her midlife's mission, she has said, is to be an example of what is possible. My life's mission is that just with a little bit of a tweak. I want to be evidence of what could be. I want to be evidence of what could be when you leave a career that you have spent your entire life building and growing and having it be your full identity to start a completely new career when you're 50 years old. I want to be evidence of what could happen when you do that. I want to be evidence that you could build a huge career in your 50s from scratch with no real knowledge of entrepreneurship. In the past, I wanted to be evidence that you could lose 100 pounds and keep it off. I want to be that evidence for someone who says that's impossible. Guess what? I am evidence that it could be. I wanted to be evidence that it could be that as a woman, you could step into a job like a trial attorney, which is a very small number of women, and be very good at it and be well respected and win a lot of cases. I want to be evidence for young lawyers of that. I want to be evidence. I recently consulted with a woman who it wasn't even a consult. She asked me to speak to her. I had taught one of her classes in law school. I was a guest teacher. She remembered me. She reached out and she asked me to meet with her and give her some guidance. So I met with her this past weekend. And at the end of the call, she said to me, I've reached out to so many of my classmates, so many people, and no one has responded. And you are the first person to respond. And she said something about like, humility, which that's a huge compliment to me that it showed my humility. But for me, it's evidence that reaching out is worth it. I want to be evidence of that for her. I want to be evidence that it could be worthwhile to reach out to people. I want to be evidence that people who you think are too busy for you aren't always too busy for you. I want to be evidence for others that people want to help you. And so if you start thinking about what do you want to be evidence of for your people at work, for the people that you serve, for your partners, for your kids, for your family. I'll give you another example of this that really drives it home for me. And it is a person who I look up to and admire. Her name's Jasmine Star. She has a podcast, the Jasmine Star podcast. Has a really interesting story that is better told by her, and she talks about it quite a bit in her podcast. But when she was young, she started law school at UCLA. And when she was a first year in law school, her mother was diagnosed with brain cancer. And so she dropped out of school, and she and her beautiful husband, JD, he asked her what she would do if she could do anything. And she said photography. And she picked up a camera, built this amazing photography business, turned that into this amazing business where she runs a company called Social Curator, helping creators brand themselves and create themselves on social media. And now she is building something even greater, helping people launch and so forth. She is evidence for me that it could be that you jump into a career that you've never done before. For her, it was photography, and become a huge hit. And then you can transfer the skills that you learn and use them as evidence that you could start something new. For her, it was Social Curator, and that you can transfer that into something else, which is what she's doing now. So she has served as evidence for me of a bunch of things, that a little bit of law school was enough to bring her to the next thing, that you don't have to be a lawyer forever. There's all kinds of things. I can look at Jasmine and make a list of all the things that she could be evidence of for me. There's many, many of them. One of them most recently is Jasmine reached out to me and asked me to be on her podcast. That episode is actually coming up very, very soon, which to me is evidence of magic, that this person that I have looked up to now asked me to be on her podcast. So all of this is beautiful evidence. And it doesn't always do the job. Let's be honest. Because here's the thing about evidence. Other people's evidence, when you collect evidence by looking at others, by looking at Googling the thing and collecting statistics, that is not always as powerful as when you create evidence that it's possible for you, that it could be for you. There's a huge difference there. And it's a difference. I recently read a book called The Garden Within. Oh gosh, I'm going to remember the title. I will post it in the show notes. Dr. Anita something. But it is in that book, she talked about the difference between hope and faith. And she said that faith is believing, I'm paraphrasing here and turning it into my words a little. She said that faith is believing that something is possible, and hope is believing it's possible for you. And that is a huge difference. For me, belief that something is possible, I get that by collecting evidence, by looking at people like Jasmine. Mel Robbins is another. She was a lawyer and then she went into something else. Collecting evidence of people, specifically women, who have started new careers in their 50s and been successful. So I can collect all the evidence that I want to believe that something is possible. But to believe that it's possible for me, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit harder. That's a little bit more of a challenge. And it can be done. But the way that it's done is by creating evidence, not collecting it from other people and outside of me, but creating it by taking action. And that is a lot more risky. Creating evidence means stepping away from my legal job to do this thing. It means starting a membership and telling people about it so that they will join the membership. It means selling for me, selling to a jury, a group of people in the courtroom, was way more comfortable than selling myself as a coach, as a speaker. But I have created evidence that people want what I sell, and the keynote speeches that I've been hired to give, the people I've been hired to serve as coaching, the companies that have hired me to come in and serve as a consultant, as a coach to their CEOs. I have created evidence by taking risks and doing things that were so scary at the beginning. And it was so much easier to think of just escaping back to what was known rather than creating evidence so that I could believe that it was possible for me. But every time that I do, I have a little bit more belief. And when I reach out to someone and they decide not to have me as their keynote this year or not to hire me as a coach at this time, I don't allow that to be evidence that it's not working. I allow that to be evidence that it's a seed that is planted and then it will come to fruition later. And most of the time it does. Some of the opportunities that had presented themselves to me in 2019, right before COVID, when I was just starting to do some keynoting, in 2024 have sprouted. And so I am creating evidence every day that this is working. It's the same thing with weight loss. When I was young, I'd look at all these people, the before and after, the magic makeovers. And when I was young, there was even more of a focus on weight loss and less a focus on health. And so there was a lot of that out there. And so I believed it was possible, but I sure as shoot did not believe it was possible for me. In order for me to believe it was possible for me, I had to start creating evidence. I had to start eating less, moving more, drinking more water, getting better sleep. And as I did that, I created evidence. I could get this much closer to my goal. I could get this much closer to my goal. I could get this much closer to my goal. And eventually, I created the evidence that had me believing I could actually lose 100 pounds. And then I had to do the same thing with keeping it off. But creating evidence, yes, it's a little bit scarier, but the risk is so much greater because the reward is so much greater. I want you to have the skills you need to build beliefs. Because when you do, you know how to build your own belief in yourself, in your potential, in your ideas, in the money that you can make, in your worth, in your value. And then you can go out and build the belief of others, which is just as important. When I talk about advocating, we talk about it as knowing what you want, asking for it out loud and with delight, and mastering the art of the ask. Mastering the art of the ask is building the beliefs in others. Those first two things are building the belief in yourself, and you do it all with evidence. In the Self Advocacy School, which is my membership, we have a whole module on evidence. It's a module that you can watch in a video. It's a module that you could also listen to in the private podcast that we have over there. I come on every week and do live coaching to answer questions about collecting and creating evidence and to give you some ways to do that. This membership has community. We support each other. It has the modules. It has a private podcast. It has weekly coaching. It has some weekly classes on different things like meditation and morning routines. And it is still open at the founding members offer, which is $97 a month. You can stop anytime. There's no commitment. Every month you can decide whether or not you want to stay. Most people have continued to stay month after month after month. And we are doing all of this work in there. I am closing the doors to that founding membership in mid-February so that I can organize some things, add some book summaries of the books that I've been reading, and take a little bit of time to regroup. And then I'm reopening the doors in the spring, but it will be at a higher price point and it will be without some of the perks of founding membership. You guys get some special meetings with me. You get some special opportunities before anyone else does. So if you want to build belief, and you want to learn how to use evidence, you want to join the Self Advocacy School. The link to do that is in the show notes. This podcast, though, is going to help you to do that as well. This podcast is going to help you every week to learn how to build belief in yourself if you have to, but also if you're a leader, to build the beliefs of your team members, to build the beliefs of your investors, to build the beliefs of your board. If you are in sales, it will help you to build the beliefs of your clients, your prospects, your customers. If you are a parent, it will help you to build the beliefs of your children. If you are in medicine or healthcare, you will build the beliefs of your patients, teachers, students. We all have our jury, the people whose beliefs we have to build. For 20 years, I built beliefs for my jury, and that allowed me to collect my wins. Now it's your turn. Let's do this together. Whether you do it here in the podcast, whether you do it through the newsletter and you subscribe there, whether you do it with us in the Self Advocacy School where we dive deep into this work, or whether you hire me to come in and speak to your team, this is a skill you can learn. And when you do, it is better than any other skill you could possibly learn because it is magic. I hope you embrace this skill this week. I hope you go out there and start building your own belief. And once you have that vibration as your foundation, you then bring it to others. And most of all, I hope that you have a beautiful weekend and that you take good care. I will be back next week.